In today's World Insight, positive outlook on China's economy thanks to a strong first quarter performance. On the way to sustainable growth toward the year's economic targets, any trouble ahead? And here's our host, Tian Wei.
Hello, I'm Tian Wei, and this is World Insight coming to you live from the capital city of China, Beijing. China's economy and the daily grind for most Chinese have bounced back with a good start in the first quarter of 2023. That is according to official description. That is the consensus ahead of the meeting of the Politburo of the CPC Central Committee on April the 28th, presided by Chinese President Xi Jinping. The meeting also noted the triple pressure of shrinking demand, supply shocks, and weakening expectations have eased, with economic growth better than expected. Next, China will seek to deepen reforms and opening up and expand domestic demand to keep the economic upswing. The upcoming Labor Day holiday is expected to breathe new life into the tourism industry and an expansion in the consumption market. So what will it take to keep the momentum of China's rapid economic recovery going? What are the pitfalls and challenges lying ahead still? For more insights, let's have our panelists. In Portland, United States, Yan Liang, the Peter C. and Bonnie C. Kramer Endowed Chair of Economics at the Willamette University in Beijing. We have Professor Liu Baocheng in the studio, Dean of the Center for International Business Ethics of the University of International Business and Economics. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program. Now, China's economy, always the top headline of the world's news. Today's meeting, Ms. Liang, reading from where you are, does it give much description as to what the next step could be?
Good to talk to you, Tian Wei. So I think, first of all, the first quarter GDP growth rate is very optimistic. It's very positive. It's 4.5% growth rate. And what is even better is the structure of that growth. The driving force was coming from consumption. Consumption accounted for 2/3 of that growth rate. And so the retail sales has gone up by 10.4% in March. So all these are really welcoming signs that shows that China's growth is on a path to a sort of robust recovery. Now, definitely there are also headwinds, even though the real estate sector is doing better, but the investment in that sector continued to slide to negative growth of 5.8%. And also that consumption demand, according to some experts, needs to be sustained, right? Right now, a lot of it is from the revengeful spending, but how to really sustain that consumption is really the next step. And then also the youth unemployment. Okay. So I think there are still headwinds, but still very positive outlook.
Yeah, but the question is how, isn't it, Professor Liu? Let's go to the consumption part. What are some of the crucial factors that would bring people more confidence about the economy and therefore willing to spend their money, which they're putting into the banks right now?
Well, employment is the key because this is really the main source of income that is there to support consumption. And the other is the social welfare program, whether people can rely on the government support to provide more of the public goods, for example, for Medicare and children education and housing expenses, both for residential purpose and also for office purpose. So these are really pretty much important. And the other is that how we can really cater from the supply reform to the real needs of those people by restructure the supply side and to better meet the real demand and urgent demand of the people.
It seems that according to the readout that I'm having in Chinese right now on hand, both the fiscal policy and the monetary policy will remain pretty much in the earlier logic, yet there are ways to describe it. It's active fiscal policy. It needs to be more efficient, and also monetary policy stable, of course, but it needs to be more precise and more and stronger, quote unquote, in order to expand the concerted demand in a way. I think I'm trying to translate it as we speak because we do not have a total translation of the readout, which is quite long with 2 or 3 pages. So Professor Liu, if you could shine some light on what these language matter, what exactly are they trying to refer to? As we all know, reading Chinese documents, you have to read between the lines in order to figure out what might be some of the most important changes, what might be some of the key points that are suggested in the documents. Professor?
Well, economic stability comes very much in relationship with the monetary stability. So therefore, with the interest rate and also with the exchange rate against other currencies, China wanted to remain stable. We do not really want to join the race of interest hikes or high depreciation of RMB to support the export on unfair basis. And the other is that for the fiscal policy, we still wanted to be more proactive in supporting the big infrastructure projects, which can deliver a larger share of the Chinese GDP. But in the meantime, we really wanted to make it more targeted to support innovation instead of simply to support companies who can expand their production. And the other is that more of the precise target is to support the basic research that is there to provide the foundation for further innovation so that we are able to have a longer momentum to drive the innovation on a long path.
We're going to go to the innovation a bit later, but still, let's stick to some of the fiscal, monetary, as well as the governmental policies that can encourage consumption. Ms. Liang, you might be reading the readout already in Chinese as well. So according to it, how to make sure there will be more channels to increase the income of urban residents and also to improve the consumption environment. Meanwhile, encourage consumption, service consumption, particularly in culture and tourism sector. It also suggested about how to play a bigger and better role of Chinese government investment and the policy encouragement. Meanwhile, try to lead the private investment. That is very crucial. This according to the readout of the meeting. Now, there are so many points here in the document. So among all of these, which do you see might be the key at this moment?
Right. I think definitely the encouragement and provide conducive business environment for private enterprises, especially micro, small, and medium-sized companies, especially in the service sector, and also the emphasis on the platform economies. I think those are really the key. I think on the one hand, this would help to provide the supply, right, of services and consumer goods on the other hand, but also on the demand side, it helps to create jobs because most of the jobs, the new creation of jobs coming from these private sector. So that's going to be helpful for both the supply side and the demand side. And going back to the question about policies, I agree with Professor Liu. I think the monetary policy needs to be more targeted because when we look at the TSF, the total social financing, it has gone up by close to $2 trillion in the first quarter, and that pushes the GDP, the debt to GDP ratio to 290% in China. So we don't want it to have sort of flooded of credit to the economy, but we do need more targeted credit to these small and medium-sized companies to allow them to expand and hire workers. And then for fiscal policy, yes, there will be more infrastructure spending, but also I think very importantly, we need to help with the local governments because they are coming up with a lot of local government debt to the tune of $5 trillion, according to the Chinese official data. So I think more fiscal transfer to help these local governments to promote the local spending, but also help to keep their financial risks under control. I think that is really essential.
Professor Liu, let me go on by looking into some details of this document. Talking about reform and opening up, of course, this time is being once again emphasized. According to the document, it suggests to put it into a even more important position to attract foreign business investment and also to stabilize the foreign investment and foreign trade platform, quote unquote. So how would you understand this is a literary translation I'm doing right now, holding the Chinese transcript. So how do you see, what does these 2 points really mean?
I think this is crucially important because over the past few years, we do notice actually our new prime minister or new premier has pointed out that there has been some noise against the international businesses operating in China and also private businesses over there. And right now, it is the time to give the right answer to clear the clouds over the performance of the private element in the Chinese market economy, and now to offer the reduced negative list for foreign businesses, and also to give more of the enabling environment to private businesses where they actually contribute to much of the job creation and also technological innovation. So only by giving the confidence on the job creators and those particularly young people who seek quality jobs can really have more of their confidence to spend and also contribute to their talent. So all the market players needs to work in the same direction to contribute to economic growth and also quality growth for China.
Ms. Liang, you may be well informed about the fact that Chinese government at the central level and the local level have been, from the very beginning of this year, making a tremendous effort to lure foreign investors and to explain the investment environment improving, and also to attract many friends from coming back to China as possible. So at this point, how fruitful has these efforts been so far, and what do you see are the important factors for foreign investment to feel confident about the Chinese economy, and also there will be gradual increase of the confidence for the short term?
Right. I definitely think that these foreign investors will come back for very obvious reasons, right? That China's growth is really the sort of oasis. It's a bright spot in the global economy because when the Western economies, European Union economies, and also the U.S. economies, they are entering slow growth or even technical recession, where China is forging ahead. So I think that growth prospect would definitely attract a lot of the foreign investors back. Now, the question becomes, are they here sort of in China for China, or they are still going to kind of, come here for the market seeking, right, for the efficiency seeking kind of operations? And I think the answer is both. I think there are still companies that are coming back here to provide for the Chinese market to enjoy that growth. But there are definitely also investors who will come to China because they wanted to, forge that global supply chain and, export them out from China. So I think that regulatory and the business environment transparency, which is what the Chinese government now strives to provide, is super important. It's very important to send a clear message. But then I think that it's against some of the headwinds. For example, the U.S.'s decoupling, friendshoring efforts, and so on and so forth. But I still have the confidence. I think with the growth, with the supportive policies, I do believe that the international investors will return.
Professor Liu?
I think the top consideration from the AmCham survey or from the European Chamber of Commerce survey, they always reveal that one thing that is they are really worried is policy consistency, and also the consistency in implementation at the central level and also at the local government level, and also the rule of law in terms of protection of intellectual property rights, and also the judicial efficiency in solving some of the business disputes out there. That's there is still a roadblock. And the other is also that the rising nationalism is also something that they feel worried. As a matter of fact, the new release of the AmCham survey shows that the people are no longer very enthusiastic to join international companies because of the nationalistic sentiment. And so this is something they feel are rather much of the concern.
Very interesting. A lot of things are fluid right now, Ms. Liang. So as we are looking at the changing situation of the global business environment, including the economic backdrop, how do you see the pace of China's policy change, and also the degree of encouragement coming from the Chinese side to show as signals to others as to how much China welcomes foreign investment and how much will China devote its efforts still to trade all over the world?
Right. I think definitely China becomes sort of the anchor, right, of that global stability and also that multilateral cooperation. I think China has done many things to showcase that it will continue to embrace globalization. It will continue to reform and achieve that high level, opening. So some of the things that we see recently is, the emphasis on, for example, the Canton Fair and also the open up of the Hainan, special exporting zone, special economic zone. And also China, in a diplomatic way and has trying to, work with many of the global South countries. So going back to this idea of attracting foreign direct investment, I think, the target should not be just for those Western advanced countries. I think, the BRICS now is rising at the horizon, right, to have the equal, economic weight as the, G7 countries. So I think, for China, it's really this idea that we want to welcome all these different partners from different countries, as long as they're here for the mutual benefits and to embrace sort of win-win cooperation. So I think China's message has been always consistent and very clear.
Yeah, of course, attracting investment and also more interaction with the global South has been a great way of trying to broaden up the horizon. On the other hand, Professor Liu, we see more small and medium-sized companies in those global South economies, rather than huge global companies. That is just a matter of fact that they're in the process of developing. So at this point, how to better balance, these different companies coming from very different backgrounds and looking for very different things in the market, like China, or doing business with China. That's always a very interesting balance.
I think now we also need to shift the gear because many of the local governments, they feel proud by attracting multinational companies with big names. Even if their tail businesses are located there, they can really boast that attract big names. But nowadays, with the digitization and the modernization of the business landscape, so more of the hidden champions, more of the unicorns will be there to be welcomed by most of the localities and also the business communities by itself. And the other is how we can really create the right type of policy so that they are able to share more of the data, more of the information, because they do not have the PR department, they do not even have human resource department to deal with government relations and the proper governance at a big company. But just because of it, they are more agile and more savvy into business opportunities. So to give the right type of support and also to allow some of the businesses to fail. And so this is something that we can really need to readjust our mindset and also readjust our policy.
Okay, let's move on to the issue about innovation. As we know, Ms. Liang, according to the latest document, new energy vehicle is being encouraged once again, and the battery stations, building of battery stations across the country is also being encouraged, while at the same time, the transformation of power grids as well. So all of these are very well related to China's green development, high quality growth, and certainly to innovation as well. How do you see these threads can be put together and be able to, shall I say, use one stone for several birds?
Right, absolutely. I think the new energy vehicles production, right, it's been really on a growth momentum. In March, it has gone up by 23%, and the export of these NEVs has jumped by 60%. So that's just showcase, China is really fostering a really good ecosystem to produce these, leading high-tech products that are also green, right? So I think to be able to have this outcome, I think, first of all, we do have very strong government support in terms of, infrastructure spending to, innovate or to renovate, the sort of electricity sort of infrastructure, right? How to reform the how to change the power grid to be able to utilize and absorb and transmit all these new energies, and also building 5G stations, building electric charging stations, all of these coming from government's efforts to build that infrastructure. And then second, I think very importantly, is the entrepreneurship. So we have a lot of very energetic, very dynamic private sectors. They're innovating. They're also making a lot of these productions. And then finally, I think very importantly is the large talent pool that China can draw upon.
Right.
So we do have over 11 million college graduates. Some people worried about the employments, but to me, I think these are really great assets that China can utilize to push forward, that innovation-driven growth.
At this point, we are also joined now by Einar Tangen, Senior Fellow with the Taihe Institute. Good to see you, Mr. Tangen. I'm glad that you can join eventually into this conversation. Thank you for your patience. Tell me more about your thoughts on how much innovation will be able to, and application of innovation, will be able to bring new momentum to the Chinese economy right now, still in the mode of recovery.
Well, you saw it very visibly at the Canton Fair, where, if you were selling Christmas tree lights and toys and shoes, you weren't doing very well. You were forced to cut margins. But almost everything to do with, the digital 4.0, whether it's industrialization, saving money, new energy, was packed. And you saw a lot of orders going on. So you have a very different tale which is going on. China is doing exactly what it intended to do, which was to use the Belt and Road as a sluice way for pushing industries that were no longer viable in China because of higher wage rates, but at the same time building up its tertiary industries, making sure that they're extremely efficient, and that they are responsive to consumers. I mean, it takes 6 weeks in Shenzhen to come up with a new phone model. It takes almost a year or more for Apple to do the same.
Well, on the other hand, there are certain technology competition as we see, at least between China and the United States, on the chips, for example. Of course, China has been making great efforts in order to make this huge jump in the technological development. Having said that, though, how much of research being put there and some of the related sectors might be able to bring new momentum to China's innovation, and particularly to the application of innovation, and therefore drive future growth of the Chinese economy? Are we seeing much sign there, Mr. Tangen?
Well, yeah, I mean, there is this issue. China's caught in this situation where they need to have chips right away. The U.S. is basically preventing that and preventing China from getting the machines it needs to make these chips. But the silicon is only going to be around for so long, and the question is, how much do you put into trying to catch up? Basically, the U.S. and Europe are going to be far ahead because of their chip designs. How much do you have to put in to catch up so that you can keep your, manufacturing going, because these chips go into everything, versus how much you go into putting into the next generation? There's a lot of feeling that the next substrate is going to be something at the atomic level, something carbon-based, nanoprenes, things like this. So, how do you divide that? China has the horsepower to do that. It's a question of having minds. You can see quite clearly with what Huawei has done. They continue to put money into research and development, and as a result, they're getting ahead. They're finding new solutions, new problems to solve, and that's always going to be the issue. It's how you're able to solve the new problems that come along. Every solution just creates new problems. The question is, how do you deal with them?
Professor Liu.
Yeah, I think now the grudge between China and the United States in terms of the frontier technology will push China to restructure its own supply chain, in which that before we emphasize more on the skill economy by licensing of the technologies or buying ready-made equipment. And now we need to go further to subsidize more of the research on the fundamental level, on the discovery side. And in the meantime, China does really have the advantage to quickly apply to a big marketplace. So this is something that the U.S. is really hurting itself, because without a positive loop between the research versus the commercialization, the research eventually will get fractured, because after all, intellectual property and together with their high-end equipments are really commodities, are really there for sale. So you do not really put it on the shelf because they have limited lifetime. And so therefore, I hope that the wise people, politicians, researchers, and business people realize that without such a feedback, positive loop between China and the United States, everyone is going to suffer. China is going to take a longer time to move to the frontier, but we are going to get it if we really need it, because demand is really the mother of invention.
Ms. Liang?
I totally agree. I think in the short term, there might be some negative outlook just because, the chip ban and also the response to it would take time. So I cannot help noticing that, in March, a lot of these chip-related production, for example, personal computers and mobile phones and also integrated circuits, they all have gone down slightly from a year before. Now, that said, I do agree with Liu Baocheng. I think you put it very nicely. I think this sort of tech decoupling really ushered in a kind of Sputnik moment in China's chip industries. Just like, the space industries, I think, with the needs, I think China will be able to mobilize resources from the government, from the private sector. One thing that is interesting when you look at the number, again, in the first quarter, China's high-tech investment in manufacturing and in high-tech services have gone up by 15%, 17%. So it's really a all-society mobilization, I think, that from the government level to the enterprises level, they're putting a lot of money into research and development and into sort of the practical innovations and in these tech industries. So I definitely think that over the medium and long term, China will be able to achieve much better, self-sufficiency in chip production. But I also agree it is negative for the entire industry and for the global, sort of technological development.
Right. You said something which I really would love to quote, Ms. Liang. You said whole society mobilization. I think that is crucial in terms of China's experiences with the reform and opening up process the past 4 decades. When the societies are mobilized, when the society feels the momentum and the energy and the security to mobilize for economic development, we're going to get there. But the question is how, isn't it? How to have this whole society mobilization for China's economic growth, not just number, but also in quality. We have less than 30 seconds, so maybe I have one sentence from every one of you to give us some hints. Let's go, Professor Liu. Short, 10 seconds, please.
Respect people and empower the human capacity. So that's the
Mr. Tan, Mr. Tangen.
Combine money, brains, and willpower to create better chips.
Ms. Liang?
Government support in basic research and development, encourage entrepreneurship, and find international partners.
All right, we're rounding up the time for discussion. I hope we are going to see better economy. That's good for everyone. Thank you so much for the three of you joining us for tonight's discussion. Appreciate it. And that's all the time we have for today. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm Tian Wei. On behalf of the team, thanks for watching. And